Arthritis pain has a way of sneaking into life, doesn't it? One day you're moving with ease, walking the dog or playing with your grandkids, and the next you find yourself wincing when you climb the stairs or hesitating before reaching for a jar in the kitchen. It's more than just discomfort. It can feel like life itself is shrinking, inch by inch, joint by joint. I've met so many patients who quietly accept it as the price of getting older. But what if I told you that's not the whole story? What if there are time-tested natural allies hidden in your spice rack, your garden, and even your teacup that could bring relief and restore some of the freedom you thought you'd lost? I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Wellness Blueprint Over 50. Today we're exploring 9 remarkable herbs that may help you say goodbye to arthritis pain. When I think about arthritis, I often remember a woman named Eleanor. She was 71, a retired teacher, and she loved to knit blankets for her church. But her hands, once nimble and quick, had become stiff and achy. She told me, "Dr. Brian, it feels like my fingers are turning into stone." Eleanor had tried medications. Some worked for a while, but the side effects weighed heavily. What she longed for was something gentle, something that could ease her pain without stealing her energy. That's when we talked about the quiet power of herbs, particularly turmeric, ginger, and boswellia. Turmeric might be the most famous of the three. You've probably seen its golden powder brighten up a curry or a cup of warm milk. But beneath that color lies curcumin, a compound that has captured the attention of scientists for its ability to calm inflammation. Imagine inflammation as a fire in your joints, burning, relentless, damaging the very tissues that should keep you moving freely. Curcumin acts like a careful firefighter, dousing the flames without flooding the whole house. A study published in the journal Arthritis, Research and Therapy found that curcumin extracts significantly reduced joint pain and swelling in people with knee osteoarthritis, performing nearly as well as ibuprofen, but with fewer stomach problems. When Eleanor began adding turmeric to her soups and later tried a standardized supplement, she noticed her morning stiffness eased and she could knit a little longer before needing to rest. Ginger is turmeric's spicy cousin. You may know it as the root that adds a zing to stir fries or soothes an upset stomach. But inside ginger are compounds called gingerols and shogols, which work like locksmiths, quietly blocking the chemical signals that trigger inflammation. Picture arthritis as a noisy neighbor constantly banging on your wall. Ginger steps in to muffle the sound, letting you rest. I once worked with a gentleman named Harold, a gardener in his late 60s, who struggled with swelling in his knees. Painkillers made him drowsy, which meant less time tending to his beloved roses. When he began drinking ginger tea daily and occasionally taking a capsule, he didn't just report less pain. He felt more present in his own life. He could bend, kneel, and even carry his watering can again without grimacing. Now let's talk about boswellia, sometimes called Indian frankincense. In ancient times, this resin was burned in temples as incense, believed to lift prayers to the heavens. Today, researchers have uncovered another gift: boswellic acids, which block the enzymes that fan the flames of inflammation. Think of them as gatekeepers that refuse entry to the troublemakers inside your joints. In modern trials, boswellia extract has been shown to improve mobility and decrease pain in both osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Patients often describe a gentle loosening, as though their joints were finally willing to cooperate after years of resistance. One of my patients, a former marathon runner, swore that boswellia gave him back the ability to enjoy brisk walks without limping by the time he reached the corner. What's fascinating is how these three herbs, turmeric, ginger, and boswellia, though different in culture and origin, share a common language inside the body. They soothe inflammation, shield cells from damage caused by free radicals, and, most importantly, they help restore dignity to people who've been sidelined by arthritis pain. Still, they aren't miracle cures. They work best as part of a thoughtful plan: balanced meals, gentle exercise, and sometimes alongside prescribed medication. And always with guidance from a healthcare professional. But I find hope in these stories. Herbs that have been trusted for centuries in kitchens and temples are now finding their way into clinical studies, offering natural options with fewer side effects. Eleanor still knits for her church. Harold tends his roses each spring. Neither claims to be cured, but both tell me they feel more like themselves again, less trapped, more free. And that, to me, is the heart of medicine. Not just adding years to life, but life to years. There's a certain irony in the way nature works. The very thing that can make you cry over a spicy chili pepper might also be the thing that soothes your aching joints. Capsaicin, the fiery compound in peppers, has a rather unusual way of bringing arthritis pain relief. When applied to the skin in a cream or patch, it first delivers a burning sensation that can make you wonder why anyone would choose to use it. But with repeated use, something fascinating happens. Capsaicin depletes a chemical messenger called substance P, which normally ferries pain signals from your joints to your brain. With fewer messengers carrying those signals, the volume of pain gradually turns down, almost like lowering the dial on a radio. I remember one gentleman, Robert, who had advanced arthritis in his hands. He joked that using capsaicin cream felt like setting his hands on fire to put the fire out. But after a few weeks, he noticed he could grip a coffee mug again without wincing. That was enough to convince him to keep going. Now let's shift from heat to something far more soothing: green tea. You may enjoy it for its gentle flavor, but inside every cup lies a storehouse of polyphenols, especially one called EGCG. If inflammation is a raging river carving away at the banks of your joints, EGCG acts like a set of sandbags, steadying the flow and protecting the land. Research from proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that EGCG can block the production of inflammatory molecules that erode cartilage. In plain terms, it helps preserve the padding between your bones, so they glide instead of grind. I often recommend green tea to patients not just for their joints, but for their overall health. It supports the heart, the brain, even metabolism. For arthritis specifically, I've seen people notice that their morning stiffness eases after making green tea a daily ritual. It's a small act of self-care, a quiet moment with a teacup that, over time, adds up to less pain and more movement. But let's not forget one of the lesser-known herbs, devil's claw. Despite its intimidating name, this root from southern Africa has been a friend to aching joints for centuries. Its hook-like fruit gave it the name, but it's the compound harpagoside inside that works the magic. Harpagoside helps reduce inflammatory chemicals like prostaglandins, which otherwise behave like tiny sparks landing in dry grass, igniting more and more pain. When patients take devil's claw under guidance, they often describe a softening of their symptoms, not an immediate cure, but a gentler rhythm to their days. In Germany, where herbal medicine is widely integrated into healthcare, devil's claw is commonly used for back and joint pain, and several clinical trials have shown measurable improvements in mobility and pain scores. I recall one patient, a retired librarian named Margaret, who was hesitant at first. Devil's claw? That sounds like trouble, she laughed. But after weeks of daily supplementation, she came back and told me, "It's not a miracle, but I'm back to shelving my books without stopping halfway." That simple joy, being able to move through your passions without constant interruption, that is what these herbs can offer. What strikes me about these three remedies, capsaicin, green tea, and devil's claw, is how differently they work, yet how harmoniously they serve the same purpose. Capsaicin numbs the pain messengers. Green tea shields the cartilage from attack. Devil's claw quiets the sparks of inflammation. It's as if each herb takes up a different instrument in an orchestra, together creating a melody of relief and resilience. And here's the deeper truth. Arthritis pain relief doesn't always come from a single pill or a single herb. It often comes from a layered approach, small daily steps that build upon one another. For some, it's a cream on the hands at night. For others, it's a steaming cup of tea at dawn. For still others, it's a capsule taken faithfully every morning. Each choice is an act of reclaiming control, of telling arthritis, "You don't get to decide how I live today." When you've lived with arthritis long enough, you begin to feel like you've tried everything. Pills, creams, exercises, even the quiet resignation of just enduring the pain. But nature, in its quiet wisdom, still has more to offer. Some of the most intriguing remedies are not the ones everyone knows, but the ones tucked away in rainforests, fields, or even the stem of a pineapple. Cat's claw, stinging nettle, and bromelain, three unlikely allies, Each carry a story of relief for people who feel their joints have become prisons. Cat's claw, a woody vine from the Amazon rainforest, has been used for centuries by indigenous communities to ease inflammation and boost immunity. Its name comes from the little hook-like thorns that resemble a cat's claws, but inside the plant are compounds that act far more gently than the name suggests. Imagine your immune system as a well-meaning, but sometimes overzealous guard dog. In autoimmune arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, that dog barks too loudly, attacking even your own joints. Cat's claw helps calm the dog, quieting the immune response so it doesn't cause as much collateral damage. Beyond immune balance, cat's claw is also rich in antioxidants, which neutralize the microscopic sparks, free radicals, that fuel joint damage. I once worked with a woman named Linda, a retired dancer, who had rheumatoid arthritis in her wrists. "I don't expect to pirouette again," she told me, "but I'd love to hold my granddaughter without pain." After several months of adding cat's claw tea to her routine, she noticed the swelling softened, her grip steadied, and she could cradle that little baby without wincing. Now let's step into a meadow where stinging nettle grows. At first touch, nettle punishes with tiny hairs that sting and itch. But prepared properly, it becomes a surprising source of healing. For arthritis, nettle brings both anti-inflammatory and natural antihistamine effects. Think of inflammation as static on an old radio, buzzing, irritating, drowning out the music of daily life. Nettle turns down that static, allowing the song of movement and ease to come through again. Some studies suggest nettle extract can reduce reliance on pain medications in osteoarthritis. I remember one patient, a retired mechanic named George, who used to joke that his knees were as rusty as the engines he worked on. He began drinking nettle tea, skeptical at first, but after a couple of months he admitted, "The rust is still there, Doc, but the hinges aren't squeaking quite as loud." That quiet improvement was enough to let him get back to woodworking in his garage. And then there's bromelain, perhaps the most surprising of all, because it comes not from a rare herb or exotic root, but from the familiar pineapple. Inside the tough stem and juicy flesh lies a group of enzymes that can break down proteins, reducing swelling and easing pain. If you imagine inflammation as a traffic jam in your joints, cells piling up, signals colliding, bromelain works like a traffic officer, keeping things moving smoothly, reducing the bottleneck. Scientific studies have suggested that bromelain can reduce joint stiffness and even improve function in people with osteoarthritis. It's not unusual for my patients to ask, "Do I just eat pineapple?" The answer is not quite. Bromelain is concentrated in supplements because the natural fruit doesn't contain enough for therapeutic doses. But enjoying fresh pineapple as part of a balanced diet never hurts, and it carries its own bounty of vitamins and hydration. What ties these three remedies together? Cat's claw from the rainforest, nettle from the meadow, bromelain from the pineapple, is the sense of discovery. They remind us that relief can come from unexpected places, that nature still holds secrets waiting to be unlocked. Each one works differently. Cat's claw by calming the immune system, nettle by lowering inflammatory signals, bromelain by easing swelling and improving circulation. Yet together they echo the same message. Your body is not destined to remain in pain. For those over 50, arthritis can feel like an inevitable thief, stealing independence, joy, and the little freedoms of daily life. But every sip of nettle tea, every supplement carefully chosen, every thoughtful integration of these herbs is an act of defiance. It's a way of saying, "I will not surrender my life to stiffness and pain." And when I see patients regain the ability to garden, to dance slowly in the living room, or to kneel and hug a child, I'm reminded that health is not just about longer years, but about better ones. Arthritis may be widespread, but it does not have to write the final chapter of your story. From turmeric and ginger to cat's claw and bromelain, these natural remedies offer more than just science. They offer hope, a chance to move with less pain, and to reclaim moments you thought were lost. The journey is different for everyone, and while these herbs are powerful, they are safest when used with the guidance of a trusted healthcare professional. You deserve a life of vitality, independence, and joy. I'm Dr. Brian, and I invite you to subscribe for more holistic wisdom and healing.